A FEMA manager has now been fired after she admitted to actively discriminating against houses that had Trump signs out front as she was traveling around trying to provide relief on behalf of FEMA to those affected by Hurricane Milton. Now, this story gets even crazier than what I just said. FEMA, after firing her, came out and said that her actions were reprehensible. But now she's involved in a lawsuit where she's saying, hold up, wait a minute. FEMA is making me into a patsy. They're actually doing these actions all over the place, discriminating against Trump voters, and I'm the scapegoat. So today we're going to talk about the story of Marnie Washington. Let's get her on screen here. Here's the FEMA manager, and here's what was circulating, I guess, to FEMA employees who were out canvassing, specifically in Lake Placid, Florida, where they were going around trying to assess the damage and see who needed relief in the wake of Hurricane Milton. Now, we can just read the highlighted portions here. It says implement best practices, and on the second bullet point, it says avoid homes advertising Trump. Avoid homes advertising Trump. It's interesting because we covered all the different hurricanes and what was happening in the wake of them and the absolute failure on behalf of FEMA to address the issues and to provide relief to those impacted. But now we're hearing that at least on some level, they were discriminating against Trump voters as they were providing relief. I didn't know that your political ideology dictated whether or not you got help from the federal government, but apparently in this case it does. Now, Marnie Washington started going viral for this, and she was getting blamed. We were told that she was the one responsible, she was the one giving orders, and of course she was fired by FEMA. She ended up going on different interviews. We're gonna show you a few clips here where she talks about her actions and why she committed them. We're gonna start off with her appearance on Fox News, which why you would go on Fox News after doing this, I don't know. But she decided to address people and talk about what she did. So let's watch.
And someone feels uncomfortable, we can't go to that home. If you have loose dogs and someone on the team is comfortable with dogs and another person is not, we can't go to that home because of safety precautions.
So you feared the Trump houses. The people on FEMA were fearing the Trump houses like they were fearing people with vicious dogs in their backyard.
Exactly. And that's based on the trends. You can ask FEMA and someone feels uncomfortable.
Girl, hold on. I don't need to hear it again. I don't need to hear it again. The way she said with her full chest, exactly, when he described the fear that one might feel walking up to a house with Trump signs on it. Be so for real with me right now. You are there on behalf of the federal government to provide relief to those who are deeply impacted by a devastating storm during hurricane season. And you're telling me you skip over people because they're advertising a candidate that over half the country supports? It's deranged behavior. It's completely unhinged, and I'd like to think this is localized to just this woman's behavior, but she claims that it's not. She claims that other people at FEMA were actually advising FEMA employees to do the exact same thing and to skip over Trump houses. And you know, in this Trump presidency, which we're going to see in 2025, we're having a lot of conversations about these federal agencies, about the fact that they are ideologically possessed, and then we get a story like this. Are you shocked? I'd like to say I am. I'm not. I'm not surprised by this at all. We've seen the ideological capture that's taking place all over the US government. And, you know, it's wild to hear that they might skip over you for supporting a certain presidential candidate. But here it is. And we could all feel it. You know, we feel this energy around it. We feel the vibe that we get for supporting Donald Trump. And now we know that it is truly affecting our lives in very tangible ways. When you've been impacted by something that the federal government is supposed to respond to, apparently they're skipping over you. Now, as I said, she's not done just one interview. She did another one where she was going to talk about her actions and own up to them. So we're going to watch a second clip here. Let's hear from her.
Stating that I was fired. They all allege that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports stating that.
Wild. Wild. Now, before we get into the broader allegations she just made at the end of that clip, let's talk about her reasoning here. So supposedly she had gone to, I guess, some houses while she was working with these FEMA teams, and she was met with some confrontation from those who were living in the house. And I guess those individuals who she had that confrontation with, who she had that conflict with, happened to be Trump supporters. Now, let's assume that what she's saying is true, and she truly feared for her life and didn't want any more conflict while she was going out trying to provide relief for American citizens. Do you just unilaterally label every single Trump supporter as hostile because you had a conflict with one Trump supporter? I don't think so. If we did that with leftists who had conflict with us, y'all would never be getting help again. So let's be honest with ourselves that this is just active discrimination on the basis of political beliefs. And I don't think it's informed by actual experiences she had with Trump voters. I think she just wanted to discriminate. And you know what? I'm going to go even further here. It doesn't sound all that far-fetched what she's saying at the end of this clip, that she was not the only one engaging in this discriminatory behavior, that this was actually happening not only in Florida, but in North Carolina, another state that was deeply impacted by this hurricane season, and that maybe FEMA on a more widespread scale is discriminating against Trump voters. And it's interesting because we've seen the media cover this specific story in different ways. I'm going to show you a couple of little screenshots here. This is CBS News. CBS News says a FEMA worker has been fired after she directed workers helping hurricane survivors not to go to homes with yard signs supporting President Donald Trump, the agency's leader said in a statement Saturday. Now look at the stock photo, I guess, that's being utilized there to represent the FEMA manager. And then look at who's actually responsible for these actions. It's very interesting that CBS decided to cover the story in this light, a very bright white light, shall I say. And then we get this out of the New York Post, the real culprit, the real perpetrator, if we're allowed to say that these days. Oop, is that a microaggression? I don't know at this point. Now, of course, we know this woman probably gleefully engaged in this discrimination. She doesn't seem to have any remorse whatsoever and is actually doubling down on the idea that people should do this because they're fearing conflict when trying to provide relief for American citizens. That's crazy enough. And we know there's plenty of crazies within our federal agencies. What I want to know is, was this coming from the top down? Are there more people within FEMA who were engaging in this behavior, and apparently gleefully so, because she alleges that this was a common practice. And there's actually a lawsuit, which I'll show you here now. It's being reported on by NPR and other outlets. And you can see this is Florida that is actually suing FEMA for the discrimination against Trump voters. Now they bring up Miss Marnie Washington for her behavior and the part that she played in this whole scheme. And we'll read here where it says 3. While the Federal Emergency Management Agency has fired Defendant Washington and called her behavior reprehensible, Defendant Washington insists that she is a patsy and that FEMA made her a scapegoat. Now, I could see a scenario where you get caught out doing something that you clearly are not supposed to be doing, and then you put your hands up and you say, it's not just me. I'm a patsy, I'm a scapegoat. And knowing leftists and, these BLM leftists in particular, and the Trump derangement leftists in particular, we know that they like to play the victim. So part of me is like, maybe she's just playing the victim. Maybe she is solely responsible for this action, and now she's calling herself a patsy because she's been confronted and she's being held accountable for it. But another part of me, and a much stronger part of me, is saying we maybe need to look at FEMA. Because I remember when we were covering these hurricanes, multiple Americans were making videos, hopping on social media and saying, wait a minute, I'm seeing FEMA out here in the field, but they're not helping us. And now I'm wondering, why weren't they providing that help? Could they have been actively discriminating? Now, what she was doing was canvassing after the hurricanes to go and provide relief to Americans after the hurricanes had passed. But it makes you wonder, what was happening on the ground when people were truly being devastated, when their houses were being blown away, when their cars were floating in the water? this really shines a light on something that I feel like needs to be investigated a little further. Now we're going to go on and read more of this lawsuit. It says defendant Washington says that similar conduct occurred in North Carolina and throughout regions affected by Hurricane Helene and Milton. And she represents that senior FEMA officials claiming not to know that the agency was discriminating against Trump supporters are promoting a lie. While the facts will continue to come out over the weeks and months, it is already clear that the defendant Washington conspired with senior FEMA officials, as well as those carrying out her orders, to violate the civil rights of Florida citizens. Guys, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And what the lawsuit says there is very clear. At the very least, you know that this defendant, Washington, was engaging in this behavior. And in order to engage with this behavior, she had to give those orders to other FEMA employees. And the lawsuit also says that senior FEMA officials were aware of what she was doing. So we know that the web goes out, to some degree. I want to know how far, because if this was also happening in North Carolina alongside Florida, where else is it taking place? We are in the midst of a super heated political moment in this country. And if you don't think that these sort of ideas are infiltrating our federal agencies and our government, I don't know what to tell you. We know that they're ideologically captured. These are the same agencies and departments that are responsible for the DEI and the CRT that is constantly being injected into everything. And with that sort of ideology comes a certain political leaning. And implemented in that ideology is an idea that Republicans and conservatives are racist. They're white supremacists. They are the pushers of all American transgressions, and they need to be held accountable. And when these people are given power in working in these federal agencies, how are they holding you accountable? Apparently, they're doing so by discriminating against you and refusing to give you relief when you need it, when your tax dollars are going towards the relief that you should be receiving. This is mind-blowing. It's not shocking, but it's mind-blowing. And I got to go ahead and speculate here. I do not think FEMA is the only administration agency that is engaging in this sort of behavior. And there's going to be more of this uncovered with time. We all know what Trump's plan is. Once he gets in there and his administration starts working, they are going to investigate every department, every agency. They are going to uproot all the corruption. And I have a feeling this story is going to be one of many. Because as I said before, the ideological capture is real, and it really affects you in ways that you may not have ever known of. So if you were in North Carolina or Florida and you saw some FEMA employees just walk past your door and move on to the next, and there was a Trump sign out front, we might know why. And that's insane. Guys, I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Drop them in the comments down below. As always, I encourage healthy debate. So if you disagree with anything I said in this video, duke it out, but do so respectfully. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day. And damn, I guess watch out for FEMA. They're meant to help, but they're hurting. Bye, guys.